You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
Welcome to today's episode of the 1% Podcast, the show where we interview young adults who are battling or surviving an unexpected cancer diagnosis. You are not alone, and I promise, by consuming today's content, your soul will be fed with the hope, courage, and inspiration you need to keep fighting for today. I'm excited to be on your journey with you today. If you haven't done so already, be sure to head over to 1%podcast.com to sign up for our email list to see the latest news and updates for all our guests on the show. You can also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1% Podcast. If you want to join in on some of our discussions, please join our Facebook group, the 1% Podcast. To contact me directly for content, questions, or booking events, you can email me at info@1%podcast.com. What's up, everybody? It's Truett Taylor here with episode 30 of the 1% Podcast. Today's show is going to be killer. I got BMX champion Josh Perry on the show with me today. And Josh and I discuss how a BMX accident led to discovery of 2 large tumors on his brain. He and I go into detail about the accident, his vision on life. We have a great discussion about how unexpected events can really lead you to your passion in life. We go into full detail about his vision, the diet plan, all those important things. It's going to be a great show for you guys today. So today's 1% moment of truth is actually going to be about something that Josh and I talk about. It's going to be about the keto diet. So here's today's 1% moment of truth. Chronic disease continues to ravage our world today despite the tremendous advances in healthcare. Our Western culture today enjoys a diet rich in delicacies that our ancestors did not consume on a regular basis, such as grain, sugar, and starch. And if you're like me, I have the biggest sweet tooth. I always said it was genetic or it's something like that that just really drives me to want to consume sugar. But obviously, sugar is not a great thing. So research continues to show that sugar is the main source of fuel which feeds and contributes to an inflammatory environment. Sugar essentially increases the risk of cancer and disease. So how do we tailor our diet to consume less sugar? Now, there's a lot of pros and cons with the ketogenic diet, and I'm not giving you medical advice right now, so take this. If it works for you, that's great. If not, that's great as well too. But I'm going to go into detail about the ketogenic diet. So what is the ketogenic diet? So scientists look back at the Eskimos and other cultures to learn how their low consumption of carbohydrates sustained their bodies through harsh weather conditions. It turns out their low-carb diet switched their metabolism to burn fat instead of glucose or sugar. This created a metabolic state known as ketosis, which is a process in which the body burns ketones to make energy instead of relying on sugar or carbohydrates. Ketones are then metabolized by fatty acids in the liver as a source of fuel that's capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier and is an excellent form of energy for neurons. When the body lacks glucose, which is the first source of fuel, ketones are created in its absence. So ketosis was a beneficial process for the human being developed as an adaptation in times where food was unavailable, such as our hunter-gatherer times. You may have heard of hunter-gatherer diets, paleo diet, something similar to those lines. But however, you can effectively produce ketones too by limiting the amount of carbohydrates in your diet to less than 80 grams a day and protein to more than 1.2 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. So as the body adapts to use the ketone metabolism over time, the hormone level in the liver essential to the ketone metabolism becomes more efficient. So what does all this mean for us cancer survivors or warriors? The ketogenic diet essentially starves cancer. So reading an article on thetruthaboutcancer.com, I discovered that Otto Warburg was a leading cell biologist who led the discovery that cancer cells are unable to flourish using energy produced from cellular respiration, but instead from glucose fermentation. And him and another doctor partnered up, and their research agreed that cancer cells are also fueled by fermentation of the amino acid glutamine as well. So with ketogenic diets, lowering carbohydrates will reduce your levels of glucose, the fuel that feeds cancer cells. And this will also put your body into ketosis and will assist in depleting cancer cells from their energy supply. Cancer cells are unlike normal cells in many ways, but one of their traits that is most unique regards insulin receptors. They have 10 times more insulin receptors on their cellular surface. This enables cancer cells to gorge themselves in glucose and nutrients coming into the bloodstream at a very high rate. As you continue to consume glucose as your primary diet source, cancer cells will continue to thrive and spread. So it's no surprise that the lowest survival rate in cancer patients is among those with the highest blood sugar levels. All this really makes me stop and think about that delicious homemade cake that my mom prepared this weekend. So, anyways, cancer cells have a damaged mitochondria and lack the ability to create energy from aerobic respiration. They cannot metabolize fatty acids for energy. For this reason, cancer cells thrive in oxygen-depleted environments. Instead, cancer cells metabolize glucose and amino acids. Restricting glucose and other amino acid glutamine is essential to starve off cancer. So like I said earlier, if you want to check out this article, go to thetruthaboutcancer.com. It goes into more detail about some of the science. I do have a biology degree, so that all this does really interest me as well. So I want to share that information for anyone that's like me that may have someone, may want to know why things are the way they are. So let's talk about what a ketogenic diet consists of. It's basically low-carb veggies, protein, and healthy fats. So an example of some low-carb veggies would be cauliflower, cabbage, celery, collard greens, spinach, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, or broccoli and kale. Your protein sources are going to be grass-fed beef, organic pasteurized poultry, wild game, fermented dairy, grass-fed raw organic dairy. And your healthy fats are going to be avocados, coconut oil, raw seeds, nuts, and olive oil. So if you need someone to help put this meal plan together and really get you involved in the keto process, reach out to my guest today, Josh Perry at Josh Perry BMX. He's partnered up with the guys at Keto Logic and at Fat is Smart Fuel to do a 30-day keto challenge starting January the 2nd. So if you go on their website, you can check out all the products and stuff they have, and you can use the code JPerry to get 10% off your first purchase. So check it out. Start your keto plan on January the 2nd. I'm doing it. So we can all do this together. All right, so a little bit about my guest today, Josh Perry. Josh Perry was born and raised in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where he developed his passion for BMX riding. When he was 17, he moved to Greenville, North Carolina to ride with the best riders in the world, including Dave Mirra, and to pursue a career as a pro BMX athlete. In 2009, Josh won his first pro contest as well as the best trick and made his first X Games appearance. He competed with the Do Action Sports Tour from 2007 to 2013 and has performed demonstrations during NFL and NBA halftimes, overseas for troops in Iraq, and has even appeared on NBC's America's Got Talent and in the 2015 Warner Brothers movie Max. In April of 2010, at the young age of 21, Josh underwent surgery to remove a brain tumor taking up the entire left side of his brain and leading him to go blind. In November of 2012, he had Elekta's gamma knife radiation treatment to treat 2 areas of regrowth from the initial surgery. Elekta is the world's leading innovator in brain cancer and tumor treatment, and Josh has been working with them and their company since 2013 to share his story. With his experiences with brain tumors and injuries, Josh became very passionate about learning about food and the correlation in our health and well-being. Josh no longer competes professionally. However, his passion with the ketogenic diet has launched his second career into health and wellness coaching. And as you can tell from my interview, Josh is extremely humble, and I loved our conversation. So enjoy my interview with Josh Perry. Josh, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
It's going well. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to hop on and have a conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to talking to you. I've been going through all of your stuff online, all of your BMX stuff. And I was messaging you the other day about your halftime show at the Duke game, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. That was
crazy, man. You didn't seem like you had that much space to be doing all those tricks in that gym.
No, it was funny. Like the space worked out perfect for the runway to get speed, but then after the landing area and you just skid. We have a carpet, so we skid on that and then keep going and just try not to hit people. But it worked out. I
was like, man, if there's players on that bench, you guys would rode right into them. Yeah. So it was wild.
Yeah,
awesome show though, man. Do Do you have like a team or so that you travel with like that, or how's that work?
So the owner of the company is a friend of mine. It's Keith King, BMX stunt shows, and he's been doing them for close to 20 years now. So I've been working with him, I think, since 2010. So going on like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
But he's just been doing halftime shows for like NFL, NBA, and then NCAA for quite some time. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. I'm sure it's always one of those shows you kind of hold your breath on when you're watching a little bit. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Well, why don't you, I know you've got a big following and stuff. Why don't you tell all of our listeners a little bit about yourself today?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Josh Perry. I'm originally from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I moved out here to North Carolina when I was 17, so 2007, to pursue BMX as a dream and a career. And yeah, today I'm still riding. No longer competing, but still ride professionally and doing demos and filming content. But I just started doing some motivational speaking and some health coaching. So that's
awesome.
Kind of where I'm at today.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your cancer diagnosis? I'm sure it was very unexpected for you, considering what you were doing. And
yeah, so it was March 2010, just a normal day of training. And I was trying a new trick on a ramp and got a little fearful of under-rotating, ironically over-rotated, and got sent to my side and whiplash hit my head and got a concussion. Had to get an MRI to make sure there's no swelling or bleeding. Now, leading up to that point for about a year, I'd gone to the emergency room, urgent care, multiple times of these debilitating headaches and migraines that eventually would lead me to throwing up and vision problems and, classic brain tumor symptoms. And friends had to drive me in, and they kept saying, I was asking for a scan of some sort. I listed every possible scan I could think of. They kept saying, no, you don't need a scan. You're young. You're a professional athlete. You're fit. The paperwork, blood work checks out. You just have headaches. Tons of people have headaches. It's quite normal. Here's some pain pills, manage the pain. If you run out, come back, we'll give you some more. And I had a traumatic experience when I was younger taking pain meds, so it made me throw up, so I never took them. But the last time I went in, it was so bad that I was like, screw it, I'm going to take them. Luckily, I wasn't driving because on the way home, projectile vomited in the car from the, they're like heavy dose Percocets or something. And I had to pull over on the side of the road because it wouldn't stop. And then I learned later on what the cause was, but I started throwing up like just like massive amounts of dark blood. And I thought I was literally dying. The doctors told me I'm fine, yet I'm, having this scenario happening to me.
It's never fine to throw up dark blood like that. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm fearful at this point for my life, of course, and just thinking, man, something's wrong. I'm just waiting for like an organ or something to pop out. And thankfully that didn't happen. And, moving forward, it was like 2 weeks later, I was riding again. And, this is the day I'm trying that new trick on the ramp for the first time. And I get that concussion. And now I'm deemed necessary for an MRI. This situation was, calling for an MRI. So I get in there, get an MRI. And I'm just sitting in the office, by myself, just, get an MRI checkup, hit my head. It makes sense. The doctor walks in and I'll never forget. He's like, all right, we got the MRI report back. No swelling, no bleeding in the brain. So that checks out. But there's something in your brain that shouldn't be there. And it's a large mass that's residing on a good portion of the left side of your brain. And right then, I was like, man, like just like kind of like that, like that pit in your stomach, just on top of like, what could be in my brain that, I didn't put anything there, like, and he went on to say, we don't know if it's benign or cancerous, but it's a massive brain tumor. If you want a chance at living, you're going to have it taken out immediately. You'll probably never ride your bike again, and getting back to normal day things is going to be a challenge. And then and there, my heart sank, and, it was just a shock. Like the best way I can word it is like, it felt broken, just so many emotions. And, he said he wasn't sure if it was benign or cancerous, but still hearing that you have a brain tumor, I just instantly went to like, man, I'm about to die. Like, this is insane. Like, I'm living my dream. Just rode X Games the year prior, like dream come true, and hanging out with my childhood hero, Dave Mira, who's now friends of mine. Like, it's all about to be taken away. And so just that victim mentality set in, why me? What did I do? Am I a bad person? And it just was in total shock.
So you go to the hospital, you're there, once the shock kind of wears away a little bit, do you start like backtracking in your brain as far as, okay, well, this was going on and this was going on, all those things that kind of led up to, them actually finding what was going on inside your brain?
Yeah, I don't really remember too much about that. It's been almost 9 years now since that diagnosis. And I remember like, oh, that makes sense, from the experiences I had previously, like just before, the last couple of months of just the vision problems, the throwing up, the headaches and all that. But yeah, I just was more focused on like at the beginning, I was more focused on, why me? Like, what did I do to do this? And just what do I do now? And it shifted to like, how do I tell my friends and family, like, what do I do with my things? Like, am I ever going to be able to ride again? And then that sort of transformed with my mom's story of battling colon cancer. The combination of her story, Lance Armstrong's story, another cyclist, different kind, but still, a cyclist. And then the BMX community around the world reaching out, whether they knew me or not. They had heard of me, they had heard my story through interviews and just gave me a ton of support. So it really transformed from fear to motivation and fuel to get past this, obstacle or challenge to continue living my dream. Because I was 21. I just turned 21 a couple months prior. And, in my mind, I wasn't ready to go. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your exact diagnosis the first time when they found the tumors?
So after the surgery, they tested it and they said it was to be benign. It was a meningioma tumor. And I later learned about, the ins and the outs of that. But because it was growing so rapidly and pushing into my brain so deep, I think it ended up being 8 or 9 centimeters long by 4 wide and 4 deep. And it was wrapped around the artery in my brain and pushing on my optic nerve and kind of residing around that. So it was creating a lot of pressure, which made sense to the pain, but then also the vision problems that just kept progressively getting worse to where the day before I went in, it just was like I couldn't really see. Like the best way to explain it is like, you wake up in the morning sometimes and like your eyes feel a little foggy, you try to rub them and like it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
But then it does. It was like that, but like it just felt like there was like this water like layer over my eyes and then doubled and tripled vision and all that stuff. And
man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your life prior, like leading up to all this, right? So this is obviously the pivotal moment of your life when things dramatically changed. Tell us a little about your life prior to your cancer diagnosis. How did you first get into BMX?
So I'm originally from Cape Cod, Mass, and like most kids there, like you get into playing like team sports, specifically Little League and baseball. It's massive there, and so I was just playing basketball and baseball, football, hockey, like all those types of things. And over the years, I got introduced to skateboarding and rollerblading when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12-ish, and going to the skate parks, and then messed around on bikes and stuff too. But then I saw some older riders when I was about 12 that were doing like jumps and tricks, and I thought it was really cool and saw it on X Games on TV and everything. So I asked for a BMX bike for my 13th birthday, and my birthday's like right before Christmas, so I got it for Christmas, and I was just stoked, and just it slowly started taking over my life to where I stopped playing school sports in high school. But in high school, I went to a technical high school for landscaping because just before then, I started working for a friend of the family, his landscaping business. And I decided to go learn more about it in high school. And really because I could go to work for 2 weeks and then go to school for 2 weeks once I got into my sophomore year. So I started doing that, making money. At the same time, I'm progressing with BMX and traveling for contests. So I'm using the money to travel, pay for things that I want. And, I got a car now and, really just start progressing in there. And then it came down to my junior year where I believe it was like I dropped out of school unintentionally. I just was like missing too many days of school and like kind of got expelled. But my parents were supportive because I was doing something positive and I was working. And so, they were, we knew that I could go back to school later on if I wanted. I could go work, and they just supported me. But one day I got an ultimatum from my boss saying, proud of you. You're doing really well with BMX. You're winning contests now. You create a name for yourself. And at that time, I just started traveling professionally and competing at the professional level. But he's like, man, you got to pick, work or BMX because you're one of my main guys. Like I was running my own routes with the truck and trailer and the mowers and all that. And then, in school, I was learning all the business and stuff, and he's teaching me. And like his goal was to take his guys and create his own business or their own business. Mm-hmm. And I was being set up for, the American dream. And that ultimatum really was like the first moment that really changed my life. And it's crazy thinking back because if I had stayed there and worked, it was a hard worker that's been embedded in me for my family, and I would have been successful. I would have had my own business by now, making good money and all that. But I would have always thought, what if, what if I taken that route with BMX? And so at the time, the ultimatum was clear for me. I was like, I'm going to go ride BMX. And my parents supported me 100%. And then I moved down from Massachusetts to North Carolina to train with Dave Mura and the other pros out there riding the best Rams possible. because I knew if I really wanted a shot at this, I had to be where the best were, riding the best ramps in the training facilities. And I had a lot of success with it. And, 2 years later, I rode X Games. I'm riding the Dew Tour, which was back then the major series we had in the United States, and traveling the world now, going to different contests and filming video parts and doing demos. I'm making money from sponsors on TV. And, I started, because I was living on my own at such a young age, I was 17 when I moved out, that, like soda was cheaper than water. So I was just living off of, processed foods and crap food, and, like a poor lifestyle, as far as like choices, late nights partying. Now I'm living in East Carolina University town, and it's just, you go ride all day, you work really hard, and then you party at night, and started drinking at a young age, and, had, all this success at the same time. So I didn't think anything was wrong. I'm doing my thing, and I'm seeing results. Reflecting now, I probably could have had even more had I been taking care of myself better and being a little bit more positive about how I live my life. But then, leading up to that diagnosis, it's, reflecting now, it's like, oh man, maybe I might have fueled that tumor that was growing, or maybe I might have caused it from my choices of living in such a negative space. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was definitely like a shock, but kind of made sense, especially as the years went on, I learned more about taking care of myself.
Yeah. Walk me through like the prep work for BMX. Like, you said you spent hours a day riding. Like, tell me like what the training schedule's like, and what, I don't know, like what your routine is like every day. To obviously you're practicing something so many times that you can't make a mistake. Right. Mm-hmm. Tell me what that routine is like.
So back then I didn't really have a routine. I mean, we rode, because Dave was on a routine. So like every morning at 10:30 we'd ride, and then at 4:30 we'd ride in the afternoon. But training like in the gym wasn't a part of, my life until 2013 when I blew out my knee and learned the hard way. But before that, it was just, you just go to the session. And I was coming from, like a athletic background with team sports. So I had like the drills kind of in me. So every time, even at a young age, when I first got to BMX, when I learned something, I would do it multiple times that day. And then I would try it on a new ramp, and then do it on as many ramps as I possibly could. And then, so every trick I learned, that was the process for me. And that is what, has led me to become such a, a calculated and, dialed rider, and consistent, was staying, on top of my tricks every day, going through them again and again, trying on different obstacles again and again. And then every time I learned a new trick, I would just incorporate it into that routine. So I didn't really have like a routine that I was conscious of, but now reflecting back, I just subconsciously, just how it worked for me, because I wanted to stay consistent, and I wanted to land well, and I wanted to be, I wanted the trick to become easier, so that way it took less effort, and I could do it without the fear aspect. It just became second nature. So it was, we just ride, at least once, but sometimes twice a day, depending on the season. And then, for me, I had my warm up routine. I would do, some lines around the park and to get flowing. And then I would, in the same lines, I would do the tricks on those different ramps. And then I would just, start to finish, it would just be, work my way from easy to difficult. And then we go to the foam pit, we practice some new tricks. We do them for X amount of days or weeks. Then we feel confident. We go to the padded ramp, which is called a resi ramp. It's basically just a ramp with foam and then a thin piece of plastic on top. So it's like a gymnastics mat, but the plastic helps us ride across it. And so you go from the foam pit, you get your trick style there. Then the next step is the resi ramp. And then there it's the contest or the real ramp. And then, so there was things I had set in place, but I wasn't really aware of what I was doing. That's just what made sense to me and my mindset. And I'm kind of OCD. So, I wanted to get them drilled in so that way they'd be consistent. And then I knew for contests, with the pressure set in, you have to, 60 seconds, you get 2 runs, you got to be on. Otherwise, you're not going to do well. And so I think that's what's always led me to doing well. And anything I do is consistency, and then like that singular focus.
Mm-hmm. To the average person, like doing backflips on a bike is not a reality. So there's got to be a lot of fear or fearlessness involved in that, I would say. And, I'm sure you fell numerous times you can't even count, right?
Yeah.
What always inspired you to kind of get back up and try the trick again? Or, if you had a bad routine, where, you didn't think you could go back out there, what always inspired you to take that next step and really not give up and quit, but like really just decide to work harder and to really fight through that and perfect the trick you were trying?
It was the vision, the dream that I had. It didn't make sense for me not to try again. And I've always been like a stubborn person. So like giving up has never been like an option to me, just especially in things that I'm passionate about. And BMX, I was living my dream and I had this shot. And so in the back of my mind, I selfishly, I wanted to land the trick. I wanted to make it routine. And then two, I didn't want to let, my family down that was supporting me. So if I gave up and slacked off, it wouldn't have helped, my vision of becoming a professional BMX athlete and then sustaining that. So, like with BMX, it's taught me so much about like life skills and setting goals. I didn't really understand what I was doing, but I knew like you don't start out doing backflips, but at the same time, when you're young, you don't have all that life experience to be so analytical and think of the future, what ifs and failures and all these judgments. So you're just thinking, this is what I want to do. I fell down. Okay, well, let's reverse engineer it. What went wrong? How do I change it? And then you watch videos, you talk to other riders, and like you just keep trying. And so it just, from my family teaching me, if you want things in life, you got to work hard and you got to work hard to keep them. That just, rolled over into BMX. And then my mindset of being OCD and like wanting to be really, smooth and consistent, it just, you fall. Okay, cool. Like it wasn't failure to me. And that's the message I use now with my coaching and just my speaking and just sharing. It's like, it's not a failure unless you look at it that way. Right. If you give up and stop, yeah, it's a failure. But if you learn from it and you can grow in life, whether you become successful at whatever you quote failed at, it's all about perspective. So for me, and BMX taught me this, we fail more times in a day than people are willing to in a lifetime because we want to land that trick. And I think that takes a specific mindset to be, athletes in general have that mindset, it's never failure. It's just, here's the goal. Oh, I messed up. Okay. What did I do wrong? What do I do to change it? I want to get it. Like you just try. There's been tricks I hadn't been able to land for a year. And then one day it clicked, so it's about that vision and what you're trying to accomplish in your life. And I think that's so important that gets overlooked in action sports is how that translates to real life. Yeah. We're not real life, but I call it real life, but off the bike life and just in general, like business or relationships or school or other sports, it's just having that vision and the tenacity to not give up and to look at it as a learning opportunity to grow and be successful in whatever area you're in.
It's kind of like the win or learn mindset, I'd say. Either you win or you learn and you keep going. So
yeah, for sure. I think that self-awareness piece comes in too, because it comes to a point where I watched a TED talk from a professional whitewater rafter athlete, and it was all about giving up. Is it really giving up, or is it making an educated decision to move on? So if you try something so long and you're just very self-aware, maybe this isn't my thing, maybe I should try this instead. Like that's another factor too. So there's some tricks I know that I've worked to do, and I'm still not that great at it. And other riders seem to pick it up naturally really well. But then there's things that I do that other riders can't even fathom thinking about trying. And so it's just like, you gotta have the context of the combination of self-awareness and looking at it. It's like, did I learn from this, or what can I learn from this to be successful at this? And success can look different. It could be, oh, this sparked another idea for a different trick or a different path in life.
Yeah. What's been your biggest highlight in your professional career?
I think besides waking up from brain surgery, probably two things. I don't know how to pick between them. So in 2009 is when I won my first pro contest, beat my childhood hero, another one of my childhood heroes. He had second place. He was pretty salty about that, but we're still friends, so it's okay. And that same weekend, I won a Harley for winning the best trick contest, landing a trick I invented. That was the first person to do that. Only a handful of other people have done since. It's almost 10 years now. That was probably one of the greatest moments, because that's also what got me the X Games invite 3 months later. The second moment would probably be in 2016, the first contest I rode after ACL and meniscus reconstructive surgery, on top of other problems I had with my knee, because I rode on a torn ACL for 2 years because I was stubborn to get surgery. But coming back after that surgery and getting third place in Croatia at the second stop of the series and missed the first one, and then ending 10th overall after missing 1 of 5 events in the world standings, that was probably one of the biggest mindset and physical challenges I had to get over. So that whole year was a huge success for me. And ultimately that journey of my knee is what led me to who I share a life with now, my girlfriend, Jackie, who is my athletic trainer, walking me through the whole process of prehab, surgery, rehab, and then now we share a life together. So I don't know, probably that one.
Okay. If she's listening, that one, right?
Yeah, she's in the other room.
Awesome, man. Well, the reason I ask you these things is, I always feel like prior to our cancer diagnosis, and if you really dig in and kind of look back, I feel like, God kind of prepares you in weird ways for certain things. If you can look for that, I would say in a lot of ways. I think about things in my life that I had experienced prior to being diagnosed with cancer and stuff. And it was all kind of like a preparation, more of like a mindset preparation in a way, where not that you get tougher, but you get more educated about who you are. You get more honest with yourself. All the I'm not going to give up situations that you had prior to that kind of led you into, when you saw the tumor, obviously you freak out, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, I got a tumor in my brain. I'm going to die. All those things that you were thinking. But once that settled down, I'm sure you had the same mindset that you had when maybe you missed a couple of tricks or you're trying a trick, right? Like your mindset is, all right, you know what? Like there's nothing I can do about this except for change my mindset and really kind of fight towards that. Tell us, the first time you were diagnosed when they found the tumors, like you had surgery immediately after that. Is that how that worked, or what really went down?
Yeah, it's like a 2 or 3 week period before. Okay. The surgeon actually rushed me in to, he moved some of his patients out of the schedule to get me in sooner because he was like, yeah, you didn't have much time before you would have woken up one day.
Yeah. So you had surgery, and what was the rehab like, after you have brain surgery? I think that's something that I haven't had a lot of people with tumors in their brain on the show. That'd be a good thing to really dig into, is like, what's that kind of rehab like once you wake up and someone's actually been digging in your brain?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to touch on that, but you said something too I wanted to make a comment about, and that was, the things setting us up for these events in our life. And I believe that BMX and what it did for me allowed me to have that perspective and that strength to not give up, on top of, like I said, my mom's story, Lance's story, and the BMX community. And that's why I'm such a big advocate of people finding something they're passionate about in their life, that they're going to have, those obstacles or those failures, quote unquote failures, to get successful in that area, because it sets you up for other aspects of your life that you never fathomed being there for you. Like, I set out on a dream to ride BMX for a living. I started riding BMX when I was like 13, and didn't ever think that it would teach me these skills and, build this strength in me from falling and getting up and falling and getting up to land that trick, that it would allow me to overcome something like being told you're going to die at the age of 21. So I do believe that it's super important for people to find something. It doesn't have to be a sport. It doesn't have to be something you do for a living, but just something that you're going to do more days than not, that you can become passionate about and have those learning curves and get over them to be successful, because it does so many things in other aspects of your life. So I just wanted to note that, because I think it's very important, especially with people, not feeling fulfilled or having a purpose. And that's, going back to your other question, I don't want to go too far back, but, one of the biggest highlights of this whole thing is, we'll talk about this, I guess, in a little bit, but the third diagnosis I just had in 2017, that really set me on path for my purpose. It gave me clarity on what I'm here for and what I've been able to do, and not have to go through with what most people or a lot of people go through. And I thankfully didn't have those experiences, and I'm here doing what I love better than ever. And so I think that's actually the biggest, like on a deeper level, the biggest accomplishment from all this is, like, 1, I didn't give up. And 2, I kept doing what I loved. And 3, I've gained so much clarity in my purpose, which is to serve and support others. And that's ultimately why I stopped competing, because it wasn't fulfilling that purpose. It wasn't making me feel satisfied as a human. And so now the rehab, when I got diagnosed and I was told I had a brain tumor, didn't care if it was benign or cancerous. Thankfully, it was benign. Ironically, it's come back multiple times since, so not really clear on that aspect. But the rehab, I initially thought, best case scenario, I'm not riding my bike for a year. It actually turns out the skull takes about 4 weeks to fuse back together. I thought that was really profound. And I remember going in that 4-week mark to get the MRI to talk with the surgeon, Dr. Alan Friedman at Duke, and I'm sitting there and he's like, yeah, all right, 4 weeks. MRI looks good. Everything's, they got 4 titanium screws in the skull now, which is insane. First surgery ever, by the way. I always forget to mention that I never had surgery besides teeth pulled for braces, which I don't surgery. And then I went in for brain surgery. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But 4 weeks, we're sitting there looking at MRI, everything's back together. Everything looks good. He suggested taking another week just to, get back into the normal swing of things. And so week 5, I was back on my bike, not doing tricks, just kind of, helmet, pads, all that, just cruising around. And then slowly, day after day, started doing one trick, led to the next trick, felt good. Now, I don't remember what week it was, but the first couple weeks spinning and flipping took me so long to get comfortable with, to that body awareness, or like knowing where I am in space. Like, it just felt so bizarre, which brain is just manipulated and operated on. It's going to make sense.
Yeah.
But dude, 5 weeks I was back on my bike. Another 7 or 8 weeks after that, I was in Europe competing, and I got 8th place, my first pro contest back. Like, it was just amazing. And I get messages all the time now. Just got one today from, a family sharing, about how they thanked me for sharing my story, because not a lot of people come out that successful from a brain surgery, or really any kind of surgery. And I was home in, a day and a half after a surgery, like maybe 2 days later, they let me go, which they said was a really speedy recovery for that operation. But again, like it was that vision, and that, didn't hurt that I was a professional athlete. I was in a little bit better shape going into it, but yeah, man, the recovery was just insane. Like, so much quicker than I thought. From going to thinking I'm dying, or I'm going to die, to best case scenario, a year before I can ride again, to 5 weeks. Like, couldn't be more grateful for that experience and fortunate. And that's why I share my stories, because I believe it was the mindset that went in there. And I've had doctors since confirm that the mindset makes the world of a difference of an outcome from a patient. Because if you think you're done going in, your body subconsciously gives up. But if you are a fighter, and I call it like a survivor mentality rather than a victim mentality, you're going to come out, no one can guarantee, but you're going to come out better off than if you gave up before. So yeah, it was insane. Very grateful.
Yeah, man. So you had the tumors, you had a speedy recovery, and then it came back. Did you feel like worse the second time once you found out that the tumor was back than you did the first time when you first initially found out?
So I didn't feel worse. I felt the same, but not as long. It transformed into talking to myself. And I found out when I was in India with some friends doing demos, and they were continuing the trip, and I went home early. I think I had a vacation already like scheduled. So I was leaving early. I remember I was on the train from the hotel to the airport by myself, and just broke down in tears again. Just, it hit me again. Like, it didn't hit me right at first when I first found out, but it hit me on that train ride. And I just remember just like feeling so sorry for myself, and just like, man, why is this back again? Like, I started like having a better appreciation for life. I watched this documentary about nutrition. It changed my world. I started making all these changes, and I was just like, why me? What did I do again? And because now 2 had come back, same area. And the surgeon explained it was because of the artery and the optic nerve complications of the original tumor. So he couldn't risk hitting either of them. And so he couldn't get all the cells. It was just residual growth. But it didn't last as long. And then it went to, okay, you did this once, you can do it again. These 2 aren't as severe as the original tumor. You did that. Why can't you do this? And so I went back to my vision, and I just kept watching BMX videos of myself, of friends, just, whatever I could to be in that moment and to think about, I'm going to get over this. And it was really cool because he suggested radiation. And then my mom went through that with her colon cancer, and she's alive and well. She's, you never would have ever expected that from her, but always kept a smile on her face and a positive attitude, and especially didn't tell me about a lot of it because I had just left for this pursuit when I was 17. But yeah, really just taking all that and thinking, all right, I can do this again. He suggested radiation, didn't like it, went to Google, did some research, came across Gamma Knife. And for people that don't know, it's an outpatient, non-invasive procedure that uses radio wave beams to and a computer to treat an area where maybe surgery isn't, an option, or traditional radiation is more damaging. And asked the surgeon about it. And he's like, yeah, the Gamma Knife is a great option. And so I went to Tufts Medical Center in Boston, and they essentially just zapped the 2 tumors. And long story short with that, I was back riding, 5 or 6 days after that. They just wanted to wait to see if any symptoms came, which none did. And they shrunk for 4 years. So it was amazing. And now they've just been stable the last 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm. So I talked to a lot of people who have had, reoccurrences happen. And a lot of people say that, the initial, it's almost like the PTSD comes back where you think about all the bad things that have happened prior to you whenever you were first diagnosed. Because obviously, you're not supposed to get cancer at, 20, 21 years old, So it's one of those things where it's not something that normal people should have to think about at that age. But then, once it comes back, I think you start thinking about the things that you got to do the first time that maybe you won't get to do the second time if you don't make it through. You know what I mean? So you've had the strength to kind of get going, but I think it's a different kind of strength the second time. And that's something that I really wanted to ask you about, because you've had it, come back multiple times. And, each time you can, you have a choice to make each time, I think. Like, how am I going to deal with this each time? Like, it's like the ex-girlfriend that won't go away in a way. Probably shouldn't say that. But anyways, but it's one of those situations where it just keeps coming back, and you have a certain level that you probably grow each time it comes back, right? When it pushes you again, it's like falling down and getting back up, finally landing the trick, and then going on to something else. And then all of a sudden you miss something else. You know what I mean? But now you have an opportunity to grow even more. And adversity has a way of really pushing us past our own limits. And, I know this, people have a weird thought process, but a lot of people say cancer was a great situation in my life. Obviously, it's not the path I would have chose. And I'll say that myself. I didn't have to get cancer to have a completely different life that I have now on lifestyle and stuff, but it really brought everything into perspective. And I think as it reoccurs, once the feelings of fear kind of go away, it really gets you further past and gives you a higher level of strength than lots of times. I just wanted to pick your brain on that and see, as cancer has came back, as the tumors have grown back each time, like each time, what does that do to you, like personally, I guess mentally and emotionally, from a strength level?
Yeah. So you mentioned, like 3 or 4 things that I'm like super passionate about. I don't know where to start. First thing, perspective. I think perspective is everything. I learned that the hard way. But you said it, exactly. Like, I don't believe everyone needs to go through something that I or we went through to learn. I do believe adversity provides growth, which provides greatness. I think that unless you have a struggle, you can't become something or someone great. You need to have that obstacle to be stronger. Now, I needed to go through what I went through to learn perspective and gratitude for my life and to become as strong as I was capable of becoming. Now, the other piece to that is what I mentioned earlier, passion. Having something that we're passionate about teaches you to not give up, especially if you have to work to get it. It's not just something that comes to you out of the gate or it comes to you easily. BMX was the thing I loved. Some things have come easily. Some things, majority of things I had to work for. And I think if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to do it the first time as mentally tough as I did, on top of, like I said, my mom, Lance, and then BMX support in general. But I really think it comes down to that perspective piece. And I'm a huge component of choices. There's no excuses in life. There's just choices. You choose how you see the world, and ultimately that's going to lead to your reality. Now, when bad times arise, like a brain tumor diagnosis, I could have easily chosen the route of victim mentality. Like anyone can, it's the easiest thing. And you see so many people doing that, whether it's cancer or I got fired or I got broken up with, or I didn't make the team or I failed that test. Oh, boo-hoo me. That's easy. What's hard is to do what a lot of people aren't able to do or aren't doing. They're able to, but they're not doing it. And that's to become a survivor and think, I'm going to get over this. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow. I'm not going to let this stop me. Now, I think the reason why not a lot of people can do that is because they don't have something every day challenging them, or they have people that are like feeding into them. They aren't like challenging them themselves. But like you look at any athlete, to become great in their sport, they have other players that they need to rise up to their level or overpass. They have to learn a skill. They have to perfect a skill. And I personally think if it wasn't for BMX, I wouldn't have been able to get through it as well as I did, or at all. And now that first experience and getting over it, focused on my vision for my life, I think that definitely instilled this mental toughness and the strength to overcome challenges. And, a friend at the time said, God gives his strongest warriors their hardest battles, and they're able to provide that sense of survivorship and hope and inspiration and motivation to other people that maybe didn't feel it. because you're able to go through it. And so again, I think I needed to go through it to know that I was able to get past it and that I could help other people. Now, ironically, it took 2 more diagnoses to get clear on that. But the second time, it was partially the victim mentality again, but then also understanding I did it once, I can do it again. There's been challenges in BMX. There's been financial challenges. There's been other life, challenges before that. And there's going to be more to come. Now, as an action sports athlete, you accept the risk of, getting broke off and being injured. Like, that's a part of it, but you don't think about it. You just think about what you want. And so the second time it came around, it just was another learning opportunity. And it sparked this interest in holistic health and nutrition and fitness and mindset. The fitness piece came after I blew up my knee a year later, or actually 3 months after Gamma Knife. Yeah, it was 3 months after Gamma Knife that whole thing started. But yeah, totally, man. Like, it's just, like I said, there's so many elements that you brought up that I'm super passionate about. And like, I think that perspective piece is most important. It's really understanding at the end of the day, your reality is based on your thoughts. And you can look at the world one way, which could be negative, or you could look at the world another way, which could be positive. If you're alive, and I talk about this all the time, if you're alive, you should be nothing but grateful. And after losing my brother a couple of months, it put that perspective piece in me again. Like, man, I'm still here. I'm breathing. I have all these stresses and complaints, but it doesn't matter. I'm alive and I'm living in America and I have the access to the internet. Like, I have no reason to complain, like that I think is super powerful. And I didn't have that. It took being in my life, being challenged, literally being told you're going to die to foster a sense of gratitude that I'm alive. I'm living my dream. I'm doing something, that many people aren't, able to do. That's live their dream that they made as a child. And I have a chance. And I think that's super important, is not only am I alive, but if you're alive, you have an opportunity to better yourself. There's no guarantees, but there's that opportunity and that choice to see it that way. And if you can, then in a sense, master that mindset, then there's nothing but success that's going to come to your life. It just may not look like you had envisioned before, but that's the whole point of living and growing, is perspectives change. But if you can continue this perspective of gratitude, then you can't be mad.
Yeah. It's like it's a daily thing too. It's one of those things that you have to consistently do every day, because
100%.
When things are great, like you tend to lose perspective of how much gratitude you normally have. And I think that's just human nature in a way. Things are great. Everything's going great. All those things you take for granted, the smaller things. But then when things happen, it kind of reminds us. I tell everybody lots of times, we either need to be taught or reminded. And it sounds like to me that, through all of your circumstances, you were taught something, and now, it's almost like your purpose in your life's mission is to teach and remind other people as well too. And that's one of those things, I think, that us that are comfortable talking about, cancer, because cancer is a depressing subject. No one's like excited to talk about cancer, right? But the way we talk about mindset and health and all those things, and I don't know how you feel about this. I lots of times, it's a huge responsibility, right? Like you've had a lot of, I won't say terrible things happen, but you've had some pretty bad physical things happen that, your life was in somebody else's hands, right? And you couldn't have woken up from your surgeries. The tumors came back. You've had accidents before. You've had all these things happen in your life, right? You have all the reasons to give up and quit and everything else, but you never did. But, all those lessons that you learn, in my opinion, like, you're way more responsible now because you've had all these life occurrences happen to you to be able to share your message and teach other people and everything. How do you deal with that responsibility, right? Because you've got this great story. You've got all these people who know about you and all this stuff like that. But how do you deal with the responsibility of sharing your story as periodically as you do, and really carrying that, all the people that are listening to you? Like, how do you carry that responsibility every day, and what really keeps you motivated to continue to share your story and continue to be consistent with your healthy lifestyle?
Yeah. So, I mean, the day you start sharing in hopes that you'll help someone, you take on that responsibility. And, I didn't know that at the time. And over the course of the years, you said, all these opportunities to learn and these reminders, it wasn't until the third time that I got clear on what my purpose was. And that was to help people, and that was to share, and that was to learn. And so there's times, especially like I just lost my little brother 4 months ago. And there was times I was like, man, screw all this. There's no reason to do this. Like, he's not alive. Like why does this matter? Like, I went through all these challenging, experiences of my beliefs. But what keeps me going is the fact that by sharing, I've had people reach out and say, thank you. You helped me one way or another. You helped me overcome this, or you helped me gain a new perspective on what I deal with as my reality. And so the responsibility of it is just something I, subconsciously took on. But then that third diagnosis got me clear on my purpose, and that is to help people and create a new vision for my life, which is to help people through different outlets like the coaching, the speaking, different things with content, my social media. It's all surrounding giving value to other people without expecting anything in return, and it's just, that's what keeps me going, is the fact that I'm helping someone, which I never, when I set out on this journey when I was 17 to ride BMX, I never thought I'd be on, a call like this, talking to people about my story and them taking value from it. And now I've become really clear about that. And I haven't, I'm not using it in a negative context to, fuel my ego. It's really because I want to help people. Mm-hmm. Because my mission from what I've gone through is I don't want people to suffer, to have to learn like I did the hard way by being told you're going to die. At any age, you should never hear that, and especially if it's something that you can avoid. I don't know if was able to avoid what I had. They tell me it's genetic, but I do know the little bit I've learned about epigenetics, which is the expression of genes through lifestyle choices. Maybe I could have avoided it had I known. And so I really want to let people know you have a choice in life to take care of your brain overall, and then your overall life. Your life is a manifestation of your choices. Doesn't matter what you say. That's the reality of it. And that's what I believe. So my responsibility is to get up every day and do the things that I love and share what I'm learning and helping people, because that's what I've become really clear on. That's what my lessons have taught me is, we're all in this together. And I was on self before, selfish. I just wanted to, live my dream, which is nothing wrong with that. But now I've learned, my friend calls it off self on purpose. Now I'm like, that third reminder, like you mentioned, was a great reminder to be like, this is your purpose. Competing, I've been doing it for over a decade. It's not fulfilling me anymore. And this is why, like, I really want to help people. And if by sharing my life, that's phenomenal. And that means the world to me. And I never, ever imagined that I would ever influence or inspire someone with just living my life the way I chose to. But now I'm very clear on that. And I want to share the things that I've learned through my experiences so other people can be, healthy, happy, and as successful as they possibly can, because everyone can. It's just a matter of having the education, the tools, and the support system at the end of the day.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just listen to you say that. Like, and we haven't really like dug into this or anything like that, but I just think about, for me, what I believe is like, just God loves us so much. He gives us that little reminder, like, hey, here's your track you need to be on, whether it's a scary diagnosis or it comes back or something along those lines. Like, oh man, I got to get back on the right track. You know what I mean? And then when you get messages from people, like you mentioned earlier, like I was thinking the other day, like I got just randomly, I get messages all the time from people, like somebody's listened to somebody's story and all that stuff. But the power of storytelling is just so phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And that's why I asked you that. I really want to see like what it is that encourages you, because I want all of our listeners to, be encouraged to tell their story, because sometimes people I meet, it was such a traumatic experience. They don't feel like they want to share it, because I think they're still stuck in part of the grief cycle when it comes to that, which is cool. But like sharing your story really kind of pushes you along and moves you through the grief cycle a little bit. And then once you have people that you start affecting, I think those are little reminders too. Like, hey, this just wasn't all about me. Like your brain tumors weren't just for you. You know what I mean? Like they're for the thousands of people that you've been able to help and connect with and everything else. So again, it's part of the responsibility of using all of the things that have happened in your life to help other people. And you said something that I say all the time, which I don't know if you're trying to steal this from me or not, but we're all in this together, which is truly the case. Like, you and I have never physically met, but we're all in this community together. Like, and we're all in this life together, and our lives aren't lived to be just about us. They're to share each other's burdens. They're to help each other out. They're to allow people to help us as well too. So I just applaud you for all the stuff that you've done. If you could tell everybody that maybe like throughout your whole experience and anything, like what's been your very lowest moment so far, that moment where you just maybe really questioned things, or just the point where you were like, this is my rock bottom emotionally in life?
Yeah. So, man, again, you said so many things I want to touch on. I meant to say this earlier too, but the way I looked at my diagnosis was because of BMX. I looked at it like an injury, like how long till I can get over this? Like, I think that helped set me up so much that, like you said, like it's a reminder that we're not on self, like we need to be on purpose. And I was able to go through that and to foster this mindset that it's my duty to share that, because other people may not have that strength until they hear, like what I get told regularly. It's like, thank you for sharing, because now I feel like I can too, because how you came out and like the vision you had or the mindset you had and created. I think that's all from BMX. Like I have nothing but love and gratitude for BMX. Now moving forward to like the lowest part of my life, it was just 4 months ago. And I could have mentioned a time a couple of years ago, but it was, getting a phone call that he just turned 26 a week prior, that, my little brother had just died from a gunshot accident. That seriously challenged every one of my beliefs of being grateful to be alive, the meaning of life, the meaning of connection. Why bother doing any of this? Like I was seriously like, I've been depressed before and get out of it, but that it took me, it's only been, let's see, what's now December 2nd. And that was June 27th. So not very long. And I have people telling me, oh, I can't believe you're not on meds or seeing a therapist and all this and that. But it's like, I've been through so much, and not to take away from my brother dying, but like, it's just, man, it's just like a part of life, and like, it sucks. And like, I don't want that, but what good am I if I'm just sitting on the ground or in bed, just whining about my life? And like, I have a responsibility, like you mentioned, now that I've begun sharing my story and made that my purpose. It was okay for me for a couple of weeks, months to, feel sorry or upset, but I got back to it. I was like, well, this isn't helping anyone. So I started sharing about that. And I found that every time I share, it's never about, sharing solely to help other people. I found it's like self-therapeutic at the same time. The message I'm sharing is something I need to tell myself, or I feel compelled to share it because it's something I'm reminding myself. And every day, gratitude is always on my mind. There's not a day that goes by I don't think about my brother. I mean, I know it's still soon, but I think about him every day. I think about the fact that I'm alive and that other people aren't as fortunate to be alive or to be able to do what they love because they went through a brain tumor or some kind of cancer or tumor situation with a bad outcome, but they're still alive. Like that's something to be, thankful for. And so, yeah, like I just find that like sharing, it helps me, but then also it helps other people because maybe they don't feel alone. Like I felt super embarrassed by my diagnosis. I felt embarrassed to share. I felt like I, was this broken person. And then by sharing, I helped people in all different kinds of life, not just tumor patients or cancer patients, not just BMX athletes, but older people, other athletes, just anyone, just you sharing a story of overcoming something that other people can relate to how you felt. It's not about the experience, it's like how you felt. That is like, that's so powerful. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably the lowest part of my life. And I mean, I'm still getting over it. There's still like, I actually cried for the first time ever in 8 years telling my story a couple months ago at the Biden Cancer Summit in DC. Dr. Biden had gave a talk about time and how precious it was. And I instantly started thinking about my brother. This was like 2 months after he had passed. I just started thinking about that. And I was just thinking about how many people are here for cancer and how many people, the Bidens lost their son to brain cancer, but like how many people have lost someone they love and never thought about the fact that that may be a possibility one day or even at that time, and the fact that we're still sitting here. And so then later on, I'm doing an interview telling my story, and the first question I think it was just about like, how did you feel when you were diagnosed? And I started losing it, and it was only because I was thinking of him. And so, yeah, like that's still something I'm trying to get over, but we're always overcoming something. And I think having the mindset I do is what's allowed me to not be medicated, to not have to go see a therapist. Like I openly talk to anyone and everyone like I'm doing right now. Like I'm an open book. So, yeah, I think it's just to have that mindset of like what you want in your life and knowing it's okay to feel these things, but by sharing, you're helping yourself, but you're also helping other people at the same time. And that's just what's been really important to me, is sharing.
Yeah, man. It's, having been through a similar situation, it's nothing you ever get over. Like you never get okay with losing someone, especially like a a sibling, like a younger sibling and stuff. It's not something that you get past. Like other things, like, you know, your cancer's gone, it's gone, right? Like this is one of those things where you learn how to deal with it more every day. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And you know, just over time, you know, it's one of those things where you every day, if you make a conscious effort for it, you learn to get a little bit better every day with that situation. You learn to, you know, instead of your thought process kind of changed, you start thinking like, oh, you know, these were great moments. These were great things that happened. You know, it's siblings and all those things like that. Those memories start to outweigh, you know, the sorrow, I think, but it takes a significant amount of time, lots of times usually, but it's one of those things one day at a time, man. And I'm sure, you know, as your mindset is and your vision is right now that you've mentioned so far, it's one of those things where that's just going to add another wrinkle to your story. Who knows, you know, who you're going to impact from that situation in life as well too, right? I know sometimes I feel like I won the tragedy Olympics over here with all the things that have happened, you know, in my life and stuff. But when I look back, it's like there's just another group of people that just got opened up to you right there for you to be able to impact and share your story with and really dramatically help promote a healthier, you know, mental lifestyle, I'd say, with different situations like that. So,
yeah, sure. I mean, the interesting mindset is, you know, are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like he talks about too, he's like, you know, it doesn't matter what you've gone through or what you're going through, someone else has too. And they become successful in their area, or they've got they've overcome it. Like we all go through the same things, you know, just there's no judging better or worse, but anything you're experiencing, someone else has gone through it as well and they're okay. So like having that mindset too is super helpful. You know, like I'm challenged every day with the fact I live with 4 brain tumors still. And then, you know, I'm still getting over my brother. It's like, I just sometimes get stressed out and I think about quitting myself. And you know, it's kind of a dark thought, but I think about like, what if I wasn't alive? Would this be better? It's like, it's human to think these things and have these feelings, but ultimately what does it is like today I got 2 messages of people saying, thank you for sharing, because we just went through X, Y, and Z, or, you know, whatever it may have been. And that just sets the tone again. It's just like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if I were to give up, you know, I'd be doing just justice to myself and to the world. And so it's just a choice. It's hard. I tell people all the time, it's not easy, but it's like a muscle. You got to strengthen it and practice, you know, doing gratitude journaling and, you know, like a little morning routine just to start that day. Like Tony Robbins calls it priming, like you prime your day. That definitely makes a world of difference. And then conversations like this, like it just keeps that energy going and moving forward.
So if you could, I know you've got a million things you could probably answer this question with, but if you could give some advice to maybe a young adult listening right now who maybe is battling brain cancer or another type of cancer, what kind of advice would you give them if they're, you know, because there's a life cycle obviously to the whole cancer diagnosis, right? So, you know, just from your perspective and the things that you feel like you've kind of mastered over the years and stuff, like what would be your best advice for someone listening right now who's going through their cancer journey?
So it'd be 2 things. And one, like self-talk, like language is so important. And I learned a long time ago not to say my and then fill in the blank anything negative, because that implies that it's a part of you or that you want it. Just like people say, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, that implies you want it back later on, which is why the majority of people lose the weight and get it back. Now you want to say, I want to remove X amount of weight. Yeah. Same thing with tumors or cancer. It's never, this is just a personal opinion of mine, but it's never mine, because that in my eyes implies it's a part of you, and it is not. And it's not something that's desirable. And then number 2, it's have a vision for your life and focus on that. Like basic law of attraction 101 is, if you focus on what you don't want, you're going to attract that to your life. If you focus on what you do want, you're going to attract that and opportunities to create that life. And if you want to get like real deep with it, Dr. Joe Dispenza is all about like subconscious programming and how the atoms in our body actually change based on our thoughts. So the best piece of advice, if I had to pick one thing, was any kind of negative experience in your life is to focus on ultimately what you want your reality to be, and do everything you can to take action that's going to lead you that way. So it doesn't matter if you break a leg or you get told you have brain cancer or brain tumors, like think about the life you do want, because ultimately that's going to allow you to better manifest that than the opposite. So it's easier said than done, but that's honestly all I did, and just took that action and, you know, focused on what I wanted and hoped for the best. And the end of the day, that's all we can do.
All right. So tell us about your lifestyle now. You said, so you've stopped riding professionally and you do demos and you still travel around and stuff like that. So tell us about your new venture now into, holistic nutrition and all those things like that.
Yeah. So, like I said, along the way of the original tumor recovery, I watched a documentary that changed my mindset on nutrition, and then just kept learning more and more about it. And then, found my way into the ketogenic diet and how that has been shown to, reduce, reverse, or at least manage cancer, tumors, epilepsy for sure. Body composition, that's like the main thing that people kind of know about besides epilepsy. But then also having past brain injuries, your brain becomes impaired to utilizing glucose as a fuel source. So being able to tap into your fat stores to produce ketones, which is where the keto diet comes from, the state of ketosis, you're able to utilize an alternative fuel source for the brain. And then that's really what got me into that. And then it was like 2014, I went through a health coaching certification program to learn more about, have direction, because I was just on Google and going everywhere. So I wanted more of a direction. I got introduced to a lot of great doctors and then picked up their work. But I ultimately wanted to share. I wanted to help people. And moving fast forward, a couple of years, I got the opportunity to coach some people leading up to an event I was also performing at. And so I was like double duty. And then, like I said, that was right before the third brain tumors diagnosis. So it really just clarified things for me. Like, all right, let's implement this ketogenic diet piece, because I've been learning a lot about it, but I've been on the fence about it, like on and off, dabbling with it, but let's give it 100%. A year later, MRI showed no progression of the 2 new tumors. So that was great. But then also became passionate about sharing it. And in doing so, people were getting results just from my posting. And then I had the opportunity to, take on 5 clients, and that's what started my business. And now I'm a year in of creating a successful business, coaching people with the ketogenic diet and lifestyle. And then, now I'm getting into speaking and things like that. But it's ultimately, everything is just to help people fulfill that purpose. So I still ride, I still do all the same tricks. I just don't compete. I did the halftime show for Duke this past week. And so it's still, I love it. It's not a huge passion of mine anymore like it was when I was younger, of course, but, I just turned 30 last month, and I'm just, so focused on creating, a life that's surrounding helping people and getting my name out there, and ultimately just being able to help, more people by doing so. So, yeah.
So if someone wanted to get involved with, to be coached by you, tell us how they would do that.
So, I mean, it happens various ways. Social media seems to be the number one spot, besides word of mouth from other clients, or me just going to, some sort of event talking about it, or things like this. So, there's all kinds of ways to get in touch with me. I just, Instagram seems to be my most active, and I do my best to respond to every single comment, DM for sure. So at the end of the day too, if people, can't afford the coaching or don't want to do that, I'm not shy to share as many resources as I possibly can. There's so many resources out there. I do the coaching because it gives people the sense of clarity that they're on the right path, and then, motivation and then accountability and things like that. But yeah, I started just researching books, podcasts, websites. There's so much information out there now. Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough to be working with a lot of these top doctors and researchers in the field to continue promoting everything and, giving away free value on social media.
Awesome. Well, if someone wants to contact you, tell us where they can get in touch with you on your social media. What's your social media handles that you want to give out?
So any possible social media that I may have is just at Josh Perry BMX, and my website is just joshperrybmx.com. And then I have a blog that I don't really promote too often, but I've been contributing it for a long time, but it's just dailybrainstorms.com. But yeah, Instagram and my website are probably the best ways to get in touch with me. Facebook's the same thing, but I usually just kind of copy and paste things to Facebook just to spread it out there too. But yeah, definitely Instagram and my website.
Awesome, Josh. Man, I've enjoyed talking to you tonight. I've got a ton of value just jotting some notes down from the things that you said, as far as your vision, as far as your mindset goes. And, everything from the ketogenic diet to the way you live your life. If you backtrack all the way to the very beginning, your life is a true testament of purpose, I would say, the good and the bad things that have happened for you. and where you're headed in the future. You know, as you continue on this path, if you stay consistent with everything that you're doing, man, I mean, obviously with all the lives that you'll change just from the unfortunate circumstances you've had, but from the strength that you've had to be able to share your story and connect with so many people. And you're just real humble too, man, like real humble, open, honest. Like that's everything you want in someone, you know, if you're going to contact them and talk to them and stuff like that. So you're super approachable for people. And I want to appreciate you taking time to speak with all of our listeners tonight, man. It was awesome just to get to connect with you. And, you know, after reading about your story and seeing the different videos that you've been involved in, man, I think it's been super helpful for a lot of people. And I can't wait to see all the great feedback that, you know, you and I both get from having you on the show. And just really appreciate you taking time, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. I can't thank you enough. Like, another opportunity to share. I'm super grateful for it. And, you know, the love and support and the kind words, it means the world to me. Like I said, I never fathomed being able to help people just by living my life, and to be able to do that, it's a huge honor. And like I said, hopefully I can help one person, if not more. That's awesome. So yeah, I definitely appreciate your time and the opportunity to share, and anything I can do in the future, let me know. And yeah, like I again, can't appreciate the kind words enough. Like, it means a lot to me, just because when I was growing up, like, people being, you know, too cool to talk to me, you know, just, you know, it was a huge bummer. But then, you know, the few that were like really humble and like responded, like, it made the world of a difference. And I've always kept that in the back of my mind, and just try to do the best I can to be genuine in who I am, and to be able to provide as much value as I possibly can. So I appreciate you recognizing that. And again, thanks for the opportunity to share.
Awesome, man. Well, sounds good. Well, I'll keep everybody posted on your story and how everything's going. Okay.
Yeah, sounds great, man. I appreciate that.
All right.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode, and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to 1%podcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.